Hey, good morning, guys. As I sit here, compose myself, taking a couple of deep breaths, this is going to be a little bit interesting to get. Hi, good morning. I'm really excited about this today. I will also have a guest. Good morning again. I have a guest that I am going to be co-hosting with today. We've been talking about this in the background. Hey, good morning, Marv. How are you, brother? So anyways, my guest, I had him on my podcast. He's also an author. Good morning, Miss Maureen. But a few of you might know my guest. His name is Sil Sebastian. But he is going to be, okay, hold on a second. I'm going to try and pull him in here. No. Okay, good morning, everybody. Maureen, I'll tell you good morning. I didn't mean to pull you in. I was trying to click the next person.
Okay.
Hi, nice to see you.
Nice to see you. I love you.
Much love to you. Hang in for the show, okay?
I am. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. I'm going to see if I can't. This is fun. I'm going to see if I can't pull in. There we go. Now he's in. Okay. Well, now you get to meet Sil too. This is fun. You know what? This is my life. It's all good. This is my life. Good morning, Sil. So we have a surprise.
Hello. I'm going to click out. I'll click out, Cher.
Brilliant.
I'm going to click out.
Okay. All right. Wonderful. We'll talk soon here.
Okay. Click out. It won't let me.
It won't let you? I guess just close your there you go. Okay. All right. So anyways, good morning, everybody. It's always interesting getting these things started unless you're like a real pro at it.
Yeah. You would think they make it a lot easier, but I guess it's still new, so they're just testing it out. So.
I want some of my some of the followers know who you are, Sil. Marv is in here.
Yeah, hey Marvin, how you doing, man? How you doing?
Yeah, and I'm really excited. I haven't been.
Oh, Marvin's not actually on with us. Gotcha.
Yeah. Sil, you should be able to see these comments at the bottom of the screen as we go. Marvin says hello there.
Good. Actually, I think I'll watch it on the computer and see if I can see it both at the same time. Easier to read and see. I don't read the computers, the at least the phone stuff so well. So I have to put on my glasses for that.
Well, guys, I want.
Right. Yeah.
So
hello, Ilsa.
The purpose of this, the purpose of my going live today is several. First off, I have such a deliberate intent, and that's something that I have been working on, but a deliberate intent to really just lean into my confidence, lean into the me of now, the recovered me, not the me of then. And that's a part that we'll get to. Okay. We've got somebody else in here, Sil, who knows you, the Ugly Writers. That's awesome.
Very good. Yeah, long time. Yeah, when I was posting lots of posts regularly, I would share to the Ugly Writers. Yeah, so very cool.
So back to my purpose of this, it's intent. And recently I had my awareness was drawn to a bit of an internal struggle that I was having with some repeated triggers. And I noticed that there was a pattern, and I've been writing about some of those. I don't like the word triggers. So about those trauma prompts, trauma reminders, and there's been a pattern to them. I'll share with you after I finish the reading that I'm going to be doing from my book. There's my book. There's me. Unbound, 100 Days of Intent. Yay.
Brilliant.
And Sil was extremely helpful in this whole process of writing and getting this book published and encouragement to get me to do this. which is part of the other reason why he's on here. After I finish reading, we're going to hold a little bit of a discussion about some of the more nuanced, some of the implications, the points of intent. And the other purpose of this call is to share with you guys the process of unbinding. It seems like it might be kind of daunting and overwhelming, but it's some intense work, but it's well worth it. And it's like I shared yesterday, there is more. There's always more. And I've learned that in all of this recovery journey, that there's something on the other side of trauma. And that's this mourns.
Yeah.
So I want to get started on reading you some of chapter 12 from the book, Unbound, and then we'll get into some questions and answers. So settle in, get your coffee, let's get started. So what I'm going to be reading from is chapter 12. It's called Intent. And I might skip over some of the quotes that are in between this. So it starts out with, "It's not that I can't. I don't want to. I'm done. I couldn't bear the firsts. I'm strong, but those were hard anniversary dates to see come, and I was grateful at the end of each day to see them pass. Only a few weeks before he passed, we spent our 10-year anniversary in his hospital room sharing his waking hours. He had the nurses bring in lunch and roses for me that day. My heart was swept away with the knowledge that he was trying, even in his pain, to share his feelings. My first birthday without him, my first Christmas, first New Year, his death anniversary, our wedding anniversary, and his birthday, the death of our pet. The passing of my father was hard to bear as well, for obvious conflicting and emotional reasons. I had to raise my grandson alone now. That came with additional responsibilities and legal matters to attend to, reporting and his monthly welfare visits by social workers while trying to help him navigate his world of upside down feelings of loss. There was a mounting pressure from the bank about the mortgage, taking a crash course in personal finances, insurance, and learning to navigate the legal system when it comes to rights of survivorship. There was another death I was mourning, and that death was my own. When he passed, my identity went with him. All that I knew of who I was gone in one final kiss. Now it's time to dismantle a life no longer present. The task of taking apart and putting away or giving away what a person leaves behind is much like attending the funeral all over again if there's not enough time to process the loss. This was our life, his life. He kept everything. He finished nothing, but he kept everything. There was so much to clean out, and with each item, I said more goodbyes, growing more depressed. Was this all there was after all those years together? I wanted him back, not the accumulated piles of nothing. Many days I resisted the urge to put a giant for sale sign on everything and just leave, to go anywhere but here. Through all this, there was the undeniable fact a young boy needed me to hold myself together. There were more needs to address, such as income. How would I make up for the loss of his income? I had to increase my business revenue, more hours working, less time living. That was fine because for me, it also meant less time caring for myself. People tend to think that after a few months or a year, you pick up your life and you get on with it after a spouse has died. Nothing could be further from the truth. Who you are dies with them. You lose the person you were. And for an anxious, guilt-ridden codependent to have their world suddenly stop existing, I was in a full existential crisis. Everything about me had changed in a matter of a few short moments, and those changes weren't being recognized. There was only the drive to go through the motions and keep going, because deep inside, my resiliency was telling me to keep going for my grandson, not me. Your name stays the same, but nothing else about you does. Sleep evades you. Your health goes to pieces. Any emotion you held are washed away with the few or many tears that you cry. You are not the one the bank wants to speak to. They want to speak to the head of household. You are not the one the insurance company deals with. Only the head of household. Who was I? And did I even matter? And was I invisible? Routines stop. Daily enjoyment of anything stops. Sex seems to feel like a faded memory until you force yourself to have sex with someone or yourself out of the need to feel. My grandson and I have muddled through a lot of depression, anger, and happy moments together since death visited our home. We're finding our steps together, and I give him this one piece of advice. I recently had to remind him of this commitment. As his own mother, she's battling cancer still. Breathe. Just breathe. So I told him, we are a superhero team. We're at odds, each of us with our own special power. And though we may argue at times, we still have each other's backs. I'm going to pause right there because there's something really. Uh-oh.
That's all right. It just fell down.
There's something really important
Go ahead.
that I want to bring up at this point when we pause right here. When my husband passed, I had not recognized, it took me a long time to recognize that, of course, that when he died, I died with him. And not in that emotional sense. Yes, some of that too. But my persona, my identity. And some people, I was mourning the loss of even the guilt-ridden person that I was. Why was I guilt-ridden? Well, because I wrote this book. I wrote Unbound because I was always looking for me. And that is also the purpose of this, that's my intent, is to discover me. That's where I started, with self-discovery. I knew after he passed and after I tried, after I'd considered and honestly set out to take my life 6 months after he passed, as I began my self-discovery, my walk through it, I started really understanding something. When I ran away from home, I'm going to digress here for a second. When I ran away from home at 16, I was running, trying to find who I was and running from who people were trying to make me to be. When I left my first husband, running from who somebody was trying to make me to be and trying to find out who I was. All the major impacted traumatic moments in my life have all ended in me recovering, but trying to find out who I am as a woman, as a person. And interestingly enough, when I was forced to get married at the age of 17, I did not want to get married, and I had to sign. My parents had to sign for me to be married, and I didn't want to be married. No identity. I was the dependent of my then husband. He was military. I was his dependent at 17, but yet I was adult enough to have a baby. I was mom. That's the only right that I had, was mom. I wasn't old enough to vote. I think we could buy cigarettes, but I couldn't drink. I couldn't vote. I had no rights. I was property. And I told myself in my mind, I was property. And then when my husband passed a little over 3 years ago, all of my identity, my trauma identity, the codependent, the anxious, the agoraphobic, all of that. That all went with them too. And I was left feeling empty with who am I? Who am I? So I want to pick up from there. It's really interesting because the last 6 months, I have really been leaning into my intent of discovering exactly who I am. And it's been probably one of the most amazing times in my life. So, continuing on, I'm going to pass a couple of. All right, here we go. This was a question when I met Syl, Mr. Syl Sebastian here. I'm starting up on page 201. This is probably one of my favorite parts of the entire book. Being accepted is only part of the process. Accepting yourself is the rest. Now you understand why I'm starting here. Was there a good person inside of me? Was I not made to be a sex toy or somebody's punching bag? Was there a light inside of me that could be a beacon of hope in the same way that others were? The thought of wanting to die was fading, being replaced with a desire to find ways to live a little better, a little happier, with more care and concern for how I treated myself. Each day I climbed a little higher. There were days of depression mixed in, and more good days than not. I stopped dating altogether and began to work through the grieving process. Something inside of me was different. It felt good to wake up. I saw something good inside of me. I was starting to like myself. So as I continue on, it takes compassion and understanding to appreciate what we see inside of us. And that's a point that Syl and I will be discussing. But maybe the right questions or going through my timeline will show me specific points of my rise, like the lotus that pushes through the murky, muddy waters to unfold and stand tall in the sunlight each morning. It started slow, but then after a few weeks, the shedding of layer after layer of old patterns began. And as each layer fell away, I felt better. This change was going to take time and work. I was choosing this change. That's an important point to remember. I was choosing that change. I decided to take back my life, my power. There would be a moment of meeting my false self and telling her it was time to leave. My mind was set to start living with purpose. Now, there's a story that came to me one morning as I was taking an inventory of my life, my journey, and how fast my life was becoming unbound. And I'll get to that story in just a moment. I need to give you a very important point right here. And maybe this is where Syl and I can start our discussion briefly. Syl and I covered this yesterday. When I came to the realization, working through a trauma trigger, I don't want to lose the person that I was. There's no reason to change the old me. There's no reason to erase the memories because each one of those is a gift. Each one of those has been turning into a lesson, turning into intent, turning into knowledge, and it has been motivation. Each one of those is motivation. So parts of me died when my late husband passed. Yes. But those are the parts that I no longer needed. That was parts of me that were just not invalid. I just didn't need them anymore. And what was left was the light that's inside of me, the power, the strength, the intent, the moreness. And because of that, as I have been going through and dissecting this book while I'm working on a second one, which is the process of unbinding, I have been seeing all of the changes that I've made in just the time since this was written and published. the writing and publishing of this was probably a little over a year total between, and during that time, I was going through a lot of self-discovery. But it's been years since this has been published. Not quite a year. This came out January 1st of this year. So pretty soon we're going to have a birthday. But I'm still going back through and I'm seeing how much I have grown and how much I have changed. And that's what tells me I already know that recovery is possible. I live it. It is a lifestyle, but it's more than just it's more than just talking about it. It's actually doing it. It's actually taking the steps and applying the tools, the processes, trust. It's actually trusting yourself in the morning when you get up and you say, I really don't want to get up, so maybe I'll just get half up. Maybe I'll just halfway clean up. Maybe I'll just halfway whatever. As long as you're thinking and making that effort and trying, because each day you can try a little bit more for each week. So before we get on that, I want to read you something. It's called Own Your Worth, and it's a story that I wrote in the chapter of intent. It was my fun stab at creative writing.
Yeah, brilliant. Let's hear.
Okay. Here we go. Evening would come soon. Sun was feeling more relaxed and exerting less energy, as is customary this time of day. Moon began barely showing a hint of soft white light. Activity in the great pond, slow and melodic, the way an orchestra begins to warm up before a grand opus. Dandelion, off in the short grasses, had been particularly observant and grew agitated throughout the day. Watching from a distance, Dandelion allowed feelings of doubt to flow through the bright yellow petals all day. No one mentioned it. No one asked what was causing the low vibration. Typical, she snuffed. I'm insignificant. She noted at one point, humans come and sit to admire lotus, filled with desire to own it for themselves. They admire and fawn over iris and all the other great creatures of the pond. She thought while she sulked. Dandelion broke into the activity of preparing for Moon to lead the orchestration of the evening opus by abruptly asking, why do I choose to survive? What is so special about Lotus Love and all the others? I'm worthy of more. Pause. All preparation suddenly stopped, leaving an opening for Dandelion to continue. Lotus Love thought to herself, incredible. Dandelion is ready. Historically, the family of Dandelion would only submit to the routine of life and death once claiming their value. They are, without question, one of the most significant of the Great Pond's flora. An affirmation of worth, incredible, Lotus Love proclaimed to all in the Great Pond. For dramatic impact, Lotus Love paused a moment before answering. Deliberately choosing the response, Lotus replied, I've seen you in a lower vibration today, but made the choice to ignore it. You needed to be able to ask that question for yourself. Is it time you acknowledge? No, it is time you acknowledge and own your worth. Dandelion quipped back. Needed to ask? Why did I need to ask? Why am I ignored? You are seen all day long. Humans come all day to observe you, paint your portrait, pray over you, and bless you. All desire to own you, and Iris stands so tall above the others, dancing with wind when it comes to the great pond. Lovers come to absorb your essence. Every creature in the great pond pleases so many and serves those who visit us. I am stepped on, plucked, and cursed. Look how Reed makes a special barrier just for you, and Iris has a community of her own. Well, I'm here, away from most of you, alone to fend for myself and abused. Did you know my family had nearly been wiped out from all human dwellings? Again, deliberately choosing the right words, Lotus Love spoke. You needed to ask because you have ignored your value. You allowed your doubt to lead you to the awareness of your worth. Now it's time for you to openly acknowledge your own love. You are of great importance and significance in the plan of this great pond. Dandelion was beginning to fold the soft petals inward, feeling unheard. Lotus Love spoke softly to her. Deanne, it's not with harshness or lack of care I speak to you in this way. It is time for you to recognize, appreciate, and own your value. You don't want to be treated this way any longer, correct? No, I do not. Dandelion pouted and replied adamantly. Then state your value. Dandelion paused and thought for a moment. Folding in her soft yellow petals, she began to speak. I am not common. I am unique. I can give hope, and I bring magic to those who place their wishes with me to carry them to the great universe. I am persistent. I am magic. I am wise. Discernment. I am willing. I am trust. I am adventure. I am creator. I am happy. Present. I am intent. I am deliberate. I am energy. I am sensible. Singular. I am love. And I am more. All who could hear were quiet. The moon was beaming and dropped its soft full light directly on Dandelion. Lotus Love spoke. You didn't say you're a survivor. That's because you know you are more than a survivor. You are all you said and so much more. You can transform. You are a creator. You transform life through hope. You are medicine for all those who know this magic. You flourish, and each time you are cut down, you come back stronger. You have one root that is strong, and you bloom into a flower of which every part of you is love. You sustain your future with the ability to share all this without thought. Love is the more. Lotus Love paused and quietly spoke again. Do you know what our source of life is? Self-validation. The great pond relies on self-love and the self-validation that we are all you spoke of for yourself and more. If that love vanishes, we perish. Therefore, we ignored you today. We see your moreness and know it is something we cannot possess because it is yours to own and accept. Do you believe what you spoke of about your being? I do, said Dandelion. I am significant. She looked out across the field toward all the great pond with love and appreciation one final time before folding in and preparing for the magic that was Deanne's alone to own. I am more than significant. I am love. Set your intent. Okay.
Yeah, brilliant. I love that story. It's a great story.
When I wrote that story, I don't know, Dandelion is me. And I might have shared this once before, but that's the purpose for the dandelions on the cover.
Yeah. No. Dandelions. But Lotus is also you,
yes,
right?
Lotus is me. All the characters in there. And I remember when I wrote that story, it was it was a lot of fun because I was exploring creative ways of how to express a very deep pain of feeling insignificant. And I know from experience, for me, that was probably one of the deepest pains, not knowing myself, but also feeling so insignificant because we don't know ourselves. And that's what trauma recovery helps with that's the purpose of this book, is showing you that there is more. Yes, it's my story. Yes, there's some horror in there. There's a lot of serious trauma in there, and that's only part of the trauma. but that's not the intent of the book. The intent is to show you there is more. There's always more.
Yes.
So one of the chapters in the book, the chapter I called "I Am a Good Woman." That one, of course, that was one of the heavier chapters in the book. But there was a part in there we talked about yesterday about my trigger with the cockroaches. And I'm trying to remember exactly what it was, the point was, but I do remember that I know that how we view ourselves affects our inner safety. So do you remember yesterday what we were talking about on that, about the inner safety and about actually coming to claim and own our worth? And when we do that, we can establish our much needed inner safety to be able to face, and it had a lot to do with self-conception. So how we perceive ourselves. What was the quote? How we perceive is how we believe. How we believe is how we.
Yeah, and how we believe, correct. Yeah. So how we perceive affects how we believe, and how we believe affects how we receive. And that in turn goes back again to our perception. Okay. So yeah, they're very much linked: perceive, believe, and receive. Yeah, we understand about perceptions and beliefs usually, but not also about reception. Right. Which is very interesting.
Okay.
So if you listen to your story from somebody outside, and those also with us here, there's a common theme, this theme of the self-conception. You started with saying, when Larry died, you died, which is like, whoa, wait a second. Not part of you died, okay, we understand. But you said, no, I died. Because your identity, your self-conception was so bound with Larry. Now, we speak of self-conception, not self-description. There's a very big difference, right? So, and the reason why, we distinguish that, and I make a point to distinguish it, is because descriptions tend to be narrow and limiting. I'm this, I like this, these are my favorites. Those things are all, they lock you in and bind you. Yep. And so you had a self-description that was bound up with Larry. You Larry's spouse, you Larry's partner, you Larry's dependent, you Larry's whatever, right? So everything it's dependent on that. It's a description. Mm-hmm. But a self-conception, like seeing yourself as a lotus warrior or as dandelion or dandelion, those are conceptions, and they open-ended. They grow, they evolve, they adapt as appropriate, they fluid, they're malleable, and they change. They change over time. So this is a big, big, big deal. Furthermore, because the self-conception is more, it enables us to do more than we would otherwise do. Now, a self-conception, you can't just grab anyone. You have to connect to a self-description that really resonates with you. And I remember when Lotus came along, right, this idea of a Lotus warrior. I forget how it came about. We were talking on Zoom, and I made a comment to you about the muck. It was all about the muck, and you were talking about the muck of your life. Yeah. And I said, a lotus doesn't become a lotus despite the muck. It's a lotus because of the muck. And I wanted to make the point that, sure, you are the marvel that you are, not despite what you lived, but because of it. Right. So that's what the big point was yesterday. That came. It was saying that you're not a survivor, you're a hero.
Yes, that's right.
Why? Why? Because, yeah. Oh, go ahead.
No. I was just thinking about that. We were talking about how I was starting to feel a little bit confused about, my message, my purpose, my mission, my everything. It's like, who am I supposed to be? Well, nobody. I'm supposed to just be me.
Exactly. Whoever the hell you want to be. And it changes. It all depends on appropriateness and, your connectivity to the world, whatever's appropriate, whatever you feel like doing. There is no hard and fast for anyone.
Yeah.
But the magic of it is, it's the shift of perspective. And this is it, to rethink what happened before. If you go back and look at your past, and that's what we were discussing yesterday, to see it, but wait a second, learning isn't something that only takes place in the past.
Right.
It can take place at any time. So it doesn't matter when you experienced. What matters is when you learn. That's the key issue. So you don't have to learn it when you experience it. You can learn it later. Your moreness, your bigger you, your soul, universe, whatever you want to say, it doesn't care when you learn as long as you learn. Right. So all of those previous experiences are there for the learning. So now when you go back and you go back with your power conception of, hey, me as a lotus warrior, me as a life adventurer, spirit dancer, whatever you happen to think of, doesn't matter. You know, everybody's got different ones, or they're multiple sometimes. You go back with this moreness of you now, which has awareness, discernment, and understanding connected. You seeing more. You have the ability to perspective shift, to think things through, to look at things from multiple perspectives, and to have it with some sort of detachment as well. You know, to scrutinize things without that trauma.
Yep.
Now you can truly extract the lessons.
Yes.
This is very powerful. So,
We
right.
can't extract the lessons right after the trauma. We're not going to see it. We really need to give ourselves that time, space,
Exactly.
grace.
Exactly. Exactly. You could, but it's hard to do in the moment. So it eventually will get to that point. The more you practice extracting it from your past, the easier it becomes to do it in the present. Right. So the reason you're a hero is because we were saying, you know, just what if we all playing a giant video game for the purposes of education?
Yep.
And, you know, we, in some other reality, you know, just for argument's sake, it's not whether this is real or not. It's and it's an example to give, to illustrate.
Yeah.
Right. And so, all right, you say, well, you know what? I've played all the fun games. I want to like really learn. I want to fix my deep habits that I've had for many lifetimes or whatever, and really entrenched habits. I want to change this. So how am I going to do this? Well, whatever it takes. And okay, so the program runs. And the only way that really basically you learn, because you don't learn the nice way, you're kind of stubborn, you're stuck in your ways. Well, you got to get smacked upside the head a little bit, sometimes literally.
Cool.
Well, you know, the program or the universe doesn't care that it's a little unpleasant, because in the greater scheme of things, well, it's not forever. But what's more important is, if you don't learn, you have the negativity, the stress, the downside of that habit. That stays with you forever.
Yep.
So if you have to go through some trauma to break this, wow. Now I said, that's why I called you a hero yesterday. I said, you know what? I mean, that the choices that you made in order to learn or to go through, I mean, that's kind of heroic as far as I'm concerned. It's like, wow, you know, you really went through crap in order to learn. The point is, don't waste all of that.
No.
By not learning the lessons. Yeah. You may not have seen them then, but, you know, at least the one lesson that you did learn was survival, awareness, attention, you know, all sorts of stuff. But it's to go back now and extract those lessons, to pull them out. This is the absolute magical important thing. And so you got those triggers with the cockroaches. Why? Because there was more stuff for you to go back and learn. Magic.
Exactly.
Magic.
Exactly. And what I need to go back and learn goes back to that other part of my book where I am a good woman. That is a deep, deep, heavy part of a lot of the abuse that I experienced with a very violent narcissist, addict, alcoholic, etc. However, when that happened, and to fill you guys in on a little backstory, where I am living in, I keep an impeccable home. I really do. Impeccable meaning, you know, good, clean, healthy. I keep a clean house. And I'll be darned, you live in Texas, I guess you get roaches. Well, what I had been struggling with the past 5 or 6 months is, you know, feeling like I am just missing the mark somehow, like I'm not good enough because I have roaches in my kitchen, no matter how squeaky clean it is. And that I wasn't doing right by my grandson because, you know, raising him in a house that has roaches, it makes you feel like you're less than. Well, I was getting triggered all the time because I'm feeling always unsafe. It's like, no, wait a minute. You know, and I'm pulling things from my environment to pick at that were, you know, telling me it's unsafe. Okay, that was all attaching and assigning meaning to something that I had not released from years before, which was, there again, that same thing, telling myself I am not a good woman because of the environment that I was raising my children in, because of the violence and the abuse and the cockroaches and the lifestyle. And I had not released that part of my story yet, or given myself the compassion and grace that I needed to. So the lesson that I learned then was that, and I love this statement, the me of now is not the me of then, but I am still the me of then. I am still the me of then. I'm just more aware now.
Yeah.
I am aware of my choices.
Exactly.
I am aware of my power.
Exactly.
I am aware of the things that I can set an intent for.
Yeah.
And I can I set an intent for goodness, for peace, for inner peace, for no anxiety, for CJ's growth. I set an intent to learn, and that right there for me, that's when we begin the process of unbinding. Now, in case anybody hasn't really understood this, to me, unbinding it's through intent, tapping into your awareness. It's also acknowledgement and acceptance. That's the unlearning part. And then there's unbinding, which is the application and testing. And I have been getting tested by cockroaches like,
Exactly. It's the application that makes the difference. Without application, it's all freaking meaningless. We have epiphanies and realizations and aha moments and awakenings all the time. But watch people who have those. They'll see a great meme or read some book. Wow, they're like they buzz about it and then what? You come back in a week or a month's time and they're the same old person because they didn't apply anything of what they learned. Right? So without application, all nothing, all bullshit. Yeah. So don't fool yourself that you know it, you get it. Test it. Make sure you can apply your learning. Check your own learning to see if it's real, that it's not just something that you believe.
Yes, I love that. I love that. What Elise writes, girl, I just love you. You could have the cleanest house in Texas. You still have roaches. No thanks, Texas. She has witnessed.
They come from outside. I was saying yesterday, it's like, oh man, you clean up the house and the roaches say, oh, thank you. Made a nice clean place for us to come hang out.
I'm going to make a creepy comparison here in many ways. I hate to say it, but in many ways, maybe the cockroaches are just like the ickier side of myself. They are intense. They're resilient. They are survivors. Yeah. You can throw anything.
Yeah.
And they're going to keep coming back.
Yes.
So they're the dandelion, the cockroaches,
Yes, exactly. Some part of ourselves, we everything, and we need to accept that we have a cockroach part of ourselves, and they survive. They hang in there. They're tough. They do what it takes. Yeah.
That's what I said. I know also, it's kind of a creepy analogy. I would really compare myself to.
Say again, sure. Sorry.
No, your internet is getting a little unstable there on your side, I think.
Yeah. So just say again what you said. We were just talking over each other. I didn't hear you.
The only thing I remember saying was that the cockroaches are just that darker part of us.
Oh yeah. And we need to embrace it. It's very important. Yeah, not to fear it. To say I am everything. Now, just because I have the ability to be anything and everything doesn't make me bad. It's how I use that. It's the appropriate usage of all my different aspects and ways of being. It determines whether I'm good or bad, right? So this is the issue. Not having it. It's like having tools in your toolbox. I've got a hammer and a screwdriver. Those are fabulous weapons.
Oh,
right?
I keep losing you.
Did I cut out?
Yeah.
I was just saying, we have a hammer and a screwdriver, and those are fabulous weapons. But that's, it's how you use the hammer and the screwdriver that determines it. Yeah. Determines who you are, not the tools themselves, right? So we're full of tools, in other words, what I'm saying.
Where was it? Oh, okay. Anyways, one of the other points that I guess one of my biggest points is when we're unbinding, the whole idea of unbinding is that we can change. We absolutely can change. And I think what has drawn me to that conclusion the most is going back through my own story, going back through my own journals, going and just reliving a timeline. I loved the little discussion that we had yesterday about the graph, about, actually, has our value ever changed? No. We think it changes, but we were just never aware of it. So to me, that's one of the steps of becoming unbound. for me anyways, is was coming to that awareness that I always had worth. I just wasn't aware of it.
Yeah.
Nobody ever took the time to point it out to me and say, Cher, we love you. We really do value you. You know, that I didn't have those kinds of parents. I didn't have that kind of family.
Yes.
But
Yes. And
we have our
yes.
and now we have each other. You know, we have our friends and our chosen family. So, and I lost where I was going with that.
It's okay. I'll jump in. I want to say something really important. Your worth is not a function of your knowledge or your awareness or your experience. You had worth as a baby and you didn't know bloody anything.
That's right.
You were an ignorant idiot. You didn't know nothing, right? So we have to be careful here. And also we have to understand there's a difference between ignorance and intelligence.
Okay.
Very big difference.
I'll buy into that.
Some people confuse the two and say, "Oh, look, no, just because you're full of information, you know, or don't have any information, it doesn't make you stupid." No, that's information has nothing to do with it, right? So sensibility, sobriety, character, in your own self-worth, those aren't external things. They come from inside you. You have that. You just have to practice and bring them out and put them into application.
Yeah.
It's a big deal. So value is inherent in others.
One of the key points about acknowledgement and acceptance for me, and that part is that's the unlearning part, is how I have changed my view of my self-worth by going back to parts of my own story, parts of my book, and actually I can pull out some places sentence by sentence, the defining moments of changes, and I can relate them, connect them from then until now, what it was that happened to help that shift. And it wasn't an event actually that shifted. It was usually just a shift in a way of being. You know, I mean, our self-conception we were talking about earlier, our self-conception, even my self-conception when I was writing this book, I thought that, well, okay, this is it. You know, I'm writing my story and I'm getting it published. So put the seal of approval on, you know, healing. Oh no, this was the beginning of the awareness. And I'm just now learning that. So now I'm going through the steps of discernment and understanding. And that whole process, that's all the unbinding. I like that, Erica. Yes, ignorance is a function of awareness and not intelligence. Okay. So anyways, that's the whole process of unbinding. When you think about it, we go through awareness, we set our intent, we go through acknowledgement and acceptance, which is also our part of our discernment. And then, you know, the testing is the biggest part, proving it to yourself, what your worth is, what your boundaries are, where your values are, how much you've changed day by day. And I know some of you listening in here, some of my dear soul sisters, you're like me. You still question your worth. But if you really go back and look at it, even look at what you did yesterday compared to today. Did you do something a little bit different than you did the week before, or think something different than you did 6 months ago? I'm telling you, go back and look for the proof of your changes. It's there. You're doing it. So, oh my goodness. So do you got anything else you'd like to drop in?
Oh, yeah, I just want to say a key element of a self-conception rather than a self-description, because one is open and growing, is to connect your self-conception to your intent to goodness. That conception itself, intent to goodness. I challenge anyone listening here, unless you now somebody that, I don't know, some kind of Stalin or Hitler or somebody like that, you have an intent to goodness. Yes, every single one of you. This is what defines you. It's your core. You know, if you really boil everything down to its root essence, why do you do stuff? What's important to you? What really matters to you? It connects to an intent to goodness that you have. So how in the hell are you not a good person or don't have value? You have this intent to goodness. How much you exercise it and share it, that's a different story. You're not obliged to, but I'm just saying, you can't determine your intent to goodness by exterior stuff. It's an internal thing. And some people don't even realize it's at the root. And they may even do stupid, idiotic things and cause trouble because of a misapplication of their intent to goodness. There is such a thing as inappropriate application of goodness. We see this all the time. Yeah. But it's very important to understand when you think of your own self-conception, really understand and acknowledge and accept and pay attention and remember your own intent to goodness. It changes everything.
Absolutely.
Massive in your self-conception.
That's why.
Does that make sense? Yeah. Anybody have any questions on that? I mean, say, because now's the time. It's not just a simple conception. So yeah, please ask if you have.
Okay. Yeah, Elise was talking about, she said that she appreciates, the conception, but she doesn't really believe that everybody, is born with good intent. And we talked about that. Yeah. Some people do believe
it's a big point. So let me address that real quick.
Yeah.
Yes. Elise, I can't say for sure that everybody is born with good intent. However, what I do notice is that even people who do the most ridiculous and absurd things, in their minds, they are doing good. Now, whether they are doing actual good or not is a different issue, right? But what they believe they are doing is good. So, I'll give an example. They have corrupted ideas of what are good is. And typically this is, they believe it's good to be superior or to be dominant or to, suppress people, stuff like that, right? So that's what leads to them doing all these horrible things. It's a corrupted idea of what is good. And this is a great tragedy and a great sadness. But even though they do horrible things, inside themselves, in their foolishness, they still, in that bubble, they still think they are doing good. So it's a very tricky understanding. So yes, I can't say for absolute sure that there aren't people who are with bad intent, but if they truly had absolute, real, genuine bad intent to truly destroy and be bad, they'd end up self-destructing. It would
nice to meet you. I wasn't ready.
Right?
Sorry, Cher invited me on and I wasn't ready, so I had to put on a hat. But it's very nice to meet you finally.
Okay.
That's okay. No problem. No problem.
Girl, I asked you on because
we all understand bad ed.
You and I have struggled with
this is a big point.
Yeah, you and I struggled with this concept of, because even me, it took me, God, I'm 61. It took me until 2 years ago to figure out that I've got some goodness in me. I am not a bad seed. So go ahead, Elise, with what your questions are.
No, it's just something I've been thinking about a lot lately too, is like, fundamentally, I do want to believe that people are good, because I do believe that I have good intent, but do I fundamentally believe that people are good? No, I don't. And I want to believe that.
So let's look at the applied discernment here so we can get to a real understanding. It's not, at least my position here is not to say that people are good, because when you say they are good, we are now lumping behavior and intent all together.
Yeah.
I'm separating out the two. People behave terribly, but sometimes they do so because their intent is goodness, but what they believe is good is completely messed up. They believe it's good to be superior. They believe it's good to be dominant. They believe it's good to screw over everybody. This is what they believe is good. They've been taught what is good is bad stuff. So it's a really sad state of affairs. And you see this so often, that people do this kind of thing that in their minds they think it's good, but it's complete crap. So we need to separate their intent with their behavior, and understand that they can believe, their objectives can become very, very corrupted. And also then to look at our own intents and say, oh, what am I really doing here? Is this actually good, or do I just believe it to be good? And to separate out the two. It's no good to simply believe that you are doing something good, and then you turn around. It's like people who say to you, oh, but this is good for you. We're just doing this because we love you and it will be good for you. No, bullshit. You're just doing it for your own bloody reasons. I know it's not good for me. I'm the one who decides, not you. So this is a very important distinction between the behavior and the intent, and to clarify the two and make sure that what you believe is good is actually good. Yeah?
Yeah. Yeah.
Does that make more sense?
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
definitely.
You know, when we start to break it apart like that, it changes the logic a little bit, and we start to see a little deeper. There's a massive difference between what people believe is good behavior and the underlying intent. Sometimes they intend to do good but cause great harm. Yeah. So I want to make one more point, because I see this on the internet all the time. You see posts, oh, love is everything, love is everything, love is fantastic, and love is wonderful. Yeah, love is wonderful,
It's a nice
but it
thought.
needs to be
Sorry.
it needs to be love with awareness. Love without awareness is often absolutely disastrous. Yeah?
Amen to that.
So has to be
Hallelujah.
love
Yeah,
with
absolutely.
awareness. So whenever you see those, memes or people making posts, oh, love is everything. So yeah, love is great, but it has to be with awareness. I always add that on there. So it's a big difference. It's a massive difference. And that's how we can understand a little better this difference between, innate goodness as in your intent to goodness, which I assume is kind of there because everybody's trying to do what's good for them. If they're trying to do what's good for them, it may be horrible for me, but they're still trying to be good in their own brains.
Yeah.
They just don't understand that if they only focus on themselves, they're not part of the world, they're not cooperating, and it's going to backfire. It's a short-sighted mindset of goodness. It's a limited bubble goodness, and not a bigger term goodness.
Mm-hmm.
So when we look at these distinctions, these discernments, then we see a better picture. And it's very encouraging. To me, theoretically, I guess there could be somebody who has an intent to evil, who just, implode and try and make everything bad. It's possible, I guess, but I haven't really seen evidence for it, yeah. It's very interesting, though. But still, for the most part, if I just look at the regular people that I know, people like you, I see people do all sorts of stupid things and cause all sorts of trouble. And they don't mean to. They don't mean to, they're just ignorant. They're just unaware, They have an intent to goodness. And for the most part, they're even trying to be good and they cause trouble. So we have to pay attention to the difference between behavior and intent.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, but Pat Coach,
No problem.
she left a very good statement. She says, I say love is a decision. Love it, so yes, love is
Exactly. And exactly. Sorry. I'm just getting excited because when you say love is a decision, automatically it makes it also possibility.
intent.
Exactly, and it brings intent into it. The moment you start to do things deliberately, you bring intent.
Yes, exactly. That's it right there. That's it right there. Elise, do you have any other thoughts on that? I brought you.
No, not really. I'm just enjoying the conversation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. It makes you think a little bit, right, Elise? I mean, what I'm sharing, it's a shift because we're so used to looking at goodness in just one contextual frame. And the moment we start to break it up and say, whoa, there's the goodness of behavior and goodness of intent. It's like, whoa, it all changes. And now when you bring in, with love as a decision, you bring deliberateness into it. When you start to bring deliberateness in, you bring in responsibility. When you bring in responsibility and deliberateness, this is when you get intent. Because intent is one more step. It's not only deliberate and responsible, and thoughtful and concerned, but also intent is that you've committed to this.
Yes.
It's so important to you. It matters so much that you've invested an energy into it and lots of it. And it's a commitment. You really mean to see this happen. That's what we mean by intent. So intent is where you take all the and you say, this is what I really, 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 really want. And when you really break down people, they want goodness. Yeah. At least most people, I guess there may be freaks, the universe is all sorts of weird stuff. But for the most part, at least, pretty much everybody I know. Let me put it that way.
So on that, I need to piggyback on that. And I didn't mean to like get in there.
No.
So when I wrote the book, the original purpose when I wrote it for was to establish being able to feel emotions and feel something other than pain. As I've gone through my self-discovery even deeper, now that I'm moved further away from a lot of the grief and a lot of the emotional pain, deliberately choosing to love myself. And this is going back to what Pat Coach had said. about, that love is a decision, but it's also a decision when we decide to love ourselves. That is stepping in over that threshold into recovery. That's going from the side of trauma to the side of, I am not a victim anymore. Now I am choosing to be more than just a victim. I'm not choosing to hurt myself any longer by revisiting, that level of pain. So then what I looked at even further, when I really started dissecting my own book, my own story, and even stories that I don't have in there, all of it was deliberate. And it was an intent to discover all of the better traits and characteristics of me. Because I'm telling you, when you really don't like yourself, you can allow all kinds of horrible, ridiculous things to happen to you intentionally.
Yeah.
You do it on purpose.
Yeah.
The people that we seek, the relationships that we choose, even our friends, the people that we marry, all of that, that's all deliberate. It doesn't happen by accident. That's all intent to, in some way,
Exactly.
hurt yourself. Now I'm intending to love myself.
There you go. There you go. There you go. And
it was a deliberate, it was a decision, a very specific decision to recover, to love myself, to unbind from everything, but not erase my past. I don't ever want to forget anything that I've been through. Not because of anger, not because I need to hold on to it for some righteous purpose. I don't want to forget it because it's a very precious part of me. That would be like cutting off my arm or taking out my heart or something. No, that's all precious to me. Everything that happened, every icky thing and all the happy things too.
So when you say you love yourself, right? I'm assuming that this, and especially since I'm bringing into all the stuff that we've been working on and everything, the bigger conception. But let me ask you this: are you focused? Is that love focused on your behavior and your habits, or what's more than your behavior and your habits?
My spirit. It's focused on the essence.
Exactly. The you that you love is more than your behavior and your habits. Yes, there's much behavior and habits that you'd like to change.
Yeah.
But that's the key. You want to change those. In other words, the underlying deeper intent that is you.
Yeah.
That's what you're loving. Not the surface expression, which comes about through, all sorts of reasons that we get to behave, and we have these habits that are a little bit messed up. But that's external. The real you that's really inside there, that's looking to come out, to learn, to grow and understand and become more aware and be more discerning, more understanding. That's the real you, yes?
Yeah, exactly. That's the part.
Yeah, so we have to be very careful to not love what is not actually a real us. Yeah, and not to confuse our behavior and our habits with what's really us.
There it is with that word choice.
Does it make sense? Yeah, Elise, how about for you? Does that make sense for you too?
Yeah. No, I'm just absorbing it. I'm just listening. Okay. So no, absolutely.
Yeah, that's why I like to hear the feedback though, because expression and communication is a very unusual thing. That you can say something and somebody gets it, but the next person right next to them, it's like, hello, what the hell is he talking about? So I like to share multiple perspectives.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. I think when it comes to behavior, like you were saying, I think it's difficult because someone, like you said, someone can have really good intent and really crazy behavior, and their behavior is not necessarily a reflection of their being. However, the challenging thing with behavior is that, it's the behavior and the discipline that creates the reality. Creates the reality. And that's why I'm respectfully, and and I say this from experience, respectfully, this is why coping with others who have mental illness is really challenging, because there's a cognitive dissonance between the intent and the behavior. And I we could go down a rabbit hole with this, and I don't want to spiral too far, but I think that not everything that's cognitive dissonance is a mental disorder or a mental illness, but I do think that that's what makes mental illness challenging, is because you see the person, you see the being, you see the human, and then you see the behavior and you go, oh, wow, what do I do with this? So, and this is just from my own experience of growing up with, respectfully, two mentally ill parents, one who's still living and is in much better shape than he was. But, it's really challenging. But I think, that's why it is important to do the inner work and the understanding.
Oh, it's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also to be aware that there's a difference between mental illness and craziness, at least the way I define it, right? Because we can have crazy behavior. Like I look at a narcissist. They're not mentally ill, for the most part. Sometimes they might be, but for the most part, narcissists are just indulgent. Yeah, and they're just caught up in a bubble. Yeah. It doesn't make them mentally ill, but they're certainly crazy as fuck. As crazy as hell. Sorry. I don't know how much you're PG or not, but sorry. Exactly. So that which exactly, but they do things which are absurd and crazy and ridiculous, which to me this is craziness, right? But so when you define craziness as being caught up in a bubble, even non-narcissists, us, all of us, we've been crazy at certain times. It's just being inside a bubble. When you think of craziness as being inside a bubble, I had a crazy weekend and we did all the stuff. I went to a crazy party. What is all that? Being in a bubble, an awareness bubble. And we can do all sorts of things because inside the bubble, it all makes sense. Yeah. But the moment you see it from outside the bubble, it's like, oh, what the hell was I thinking? What was I doing? Please don't post all those pics on Facebook. So to understand it, though, it's bubble. It's contextual behavior, contextual awareness. And when we understand this and become aware of this, now we can look back at ourselves and see our past behaviors as the same thing. And whenever we're currently struggling, we say, where's the bubble? Where's the bubble? That's huge. Now, I want to add one more huge point here. Right? In all of the stuff, like when the cockroaches come around and you were stressed, right? Yeah. Rather than focusing on the stress and the bother, develop one new habit, just one. And that is to ask yourself the question, how does this make sense? And that's capital M, capital S, make sense. Yep. Make sense in the bigger overall universal context. How did it make sense for sure? It made sense because she wasn't putting the dots together. She thought, this makes sense. Oh, wait a second, it makes sense because this is connecting me to the past and I'm stressed and I'm feeling unsafe because the cockroaches are connecting to me when I lived in the Navy time and there were cockroaches there. It was a very unsafe time for me. Yep. So there was a greater awareness. The stress was really a prompt, a stimulus, a suggestion to look a little bit more, to look at that bigger picture and figure out how it made sense. It made sense because there was an unlearned lesson, an unlearned connectivity that was waiting to be connected to be learned, to be explored. Yes?
Yes, absolutely. And that's what the whole thing about where I don't remember. I know I was complaining and I was just venting and complaining about my neighbors, and I was trying to figure all of that out. And, just the location, right? So, but then when I took that deeper, then I was like, what is the common factor? What was the common factor between now and where I am getting, reminded of my past trauma? And the only thing that was connected was the cockroaches. And that
commonality.
Yes, and that false member association. And I was connecting, I was associating the cockroaches with my worth, thinking that I was just not a worthy person because, what worthy person has cockroaches in their house, right? In my mind. It doesn't matter.
Exactly.
And Elise, how I keep my house. She stayed a month with me. She saw those big things.
And I do apologize, you guys, because I am in the middle of my workday. So if you see me typing, I'm multitasking. So I am present.
No problem.
To be on here. I was like in my sweat.
No problem.
So anyway, so what transpired with that, though, is that I made that connection. And that's how we went back to, I was letting something so obvious just weigh down on me. Sometimes you've got to make the obvious. And I wasn't paying attention. I was letting myself stress and get triggered. It's like, what is this pattern? Well, the universe gave me what Phil likes to call a COVID smack, which is just a great big duh. The duh is the cockroaches. They were triggering me. They were triggering my sense of worth, something that I was still.
It made sense, though, in some wild roundabout way. It made
It did.
sense.
It really did. But the interesting thing
Yeah.
is it really did. But the interesting thing is once I made that connection, the stress, the anxiety, when I see them now, I just simply take care of it and I don't freak out thinking that, oh, what does this mean about me as a woman? What does this mean about me as a caretaker, as a provider, as anything? It means nothing. It means they are survivors just like me and we're battling for space. I'm going to win.
Yes. Yes. So the key point though, right, with making sense is to understand that always it comes back in some way to
It
awareness.
does every time.
That's it. That's the whole world, life, the universe, everything. It all revolves around awareness, and you can quote me on that. You know, if people always want the meaning of life, well, it's very simple. It's all about awareness. There you go.
42.
Right. So problem solved for everybody who wanted the answer to that question. There you go. Free gift for you. But it truly does, you know. And it said, don't believe me. You know, I say this all the time, Racha. Don't believe a word I say. Go and check it out for yourself. Just start looking at the world through this context to say, wow, everything is about awareness. Oh, Sherbet, wow. And suddenly it'll all fall into place. You don't have to believe me. You can go and test it and check it out for yourself. In Cher's case, it was all about awareness. She had to make this connectivity and to understand that there was stuff inside her, beliefs and ideas that came about because of very strong feelings, and they were still linked, right? Sure, we're doing that course on feeling and believing. This is a very, very, very important understanding to realize that feelings and beliefs can get locked together, can become associated, and the one reinforces the other. And that doesn't make the other one true. They just reinforce each other and they make this lunacy loop.
It just
right?
that creates
so, for instance,
so much confusion. I know exactly what you're saying. That creates so much confusion.
Right, exactly, and it causes a lot of confusion because it seems so real, and we actually end up believing it's real. Why? Because, well, I feel it. It must be real. I feel it. For instance, the kid on that's afraid of the monster under the bed, they're feeling fear. And because of this, they have a fear and they don't know where it's coming from. The brain, we just have this natural tendency to try and put a reason to it. Oh, well, it must be a monster under the bed. Oh, okay. But now they start to actually believe this is real. Why? It must be real because the feeling, the fear is real. We, of course, from the outside know that neither are real. But for the child, that belief in the monster is absolutely real. There must be a monster because I feel real fear. Now, we see it as foolish for a child, but boy, look at your friends, look at yourself and say, how many things do I believe simply because there's some feeling associated to it, attached to it? So it's a false association that's making a reality. And that's amazing. It's amazing. And when you can see this and understand this, you can start to separate those out and say, whoa, wait a second. This association doesn't have to be so. The one is making the other true. It's a chicken and egg thing. They're both nonsense. And you can just throw the whole lot aside. So in Sher's case here, there was a belief of unworthiness and insecurity and fearfulness because of the feeling that went from the past, associated from a time when she had cockroaches and it was a very unsafe time, and there was all sorts of stuff going on. That came back now. But the gift of it, the capital G gift, the magic from the universe was, whoa, wait a second. These cockroaches are a fantastic gift for you to be aware of that feeling loop, that belief that your worthiness is tied to your house. It's not. Your worthiness has nothing to do with whether you keep a clean house or not. You can have a very clean house and be unworthy and vice versa. So it was a discernment exercise. Now, I want to make one more point. Okay. You came on Zoom the one time and you asked me very, very earnestly and sincerely, and you're like, what exactly is discernment?
Yes.
Right? You really, really wanted to know. Yeah, we talked about it, but the beauty of it is because you asked it with such intensity, with such an intent to know, you got this in your life. You got all these examples, and the cockroaches and the neighbors outside and the smoke and all the stuff in their barbecue. This was all about discernment. Yes. So it's, again, the universe revolves around awareness. And if you really want to know stuff, you'll get those answers. It's an incredible business.
It's amazing. We can know things like you were talking about. We can read a meme. We can read a book. We can read or listen to things. We can get knowledge, but then to really understand it, to actually, use your intent for understanding, to start with your awareness, drop down further into your understanding yourself. it's fine, great, and dandy. So basically, where I'm going with that is that it's not enough to know. We also have to believe. And to get to those beliefs, to get to the true beliefs, the things are authentic beliefs, the things that we really need to look for those associations. I have been learning that so much of my own trauma, please don't cringe on this, people. The events happened, but the pain that we carry after that trauma, that is so very, in many ways, almost self-inflicted. We perpetuate.
Yes.
We perpetuate
Yes.
that. And
I 100% agree.
Yes.
yeah,
We don't realize we're doing
Yes.
it, right?
The trauma itself has come and gone.
exactly.
Right? So what's left is your association, your relationship to the
Yeah.
trauma. And that is something that is what we determine, not the trauma determines.
And that,
very important to understand.
right. And that's the purpose of unbinding. I call it unbinding. Sill's program is the Way of Impeccability. He also has the Mourness Project. He has the superiority paradigm. Sill, and the why is the title?
Yeah, the psychology of the superiority.
Psychology of the superiority paradigm.
Yeah.
Great. I guys, I got to tell you what. You can find Sill, of course. You know his screen name is up there, but it's SYL. SAVA,
Yeah.
STIA. It's 3 D's intentionally for awareness.
Awareness, attunement, and appropriateness.
Yes,
Yeah.
appropriateness, awareness, and application.
Yeah. Well, the easiest way to get hold of me is just through Sher. If you know Sher, you can get hold of me through Sher. That's
There you
very
go.
simple. Yeah.
But Sill has an
But you know,
amazing Facebook community.
yeah.
Do you guys have any
Yeah.
questions who are listening? Please drop them in because we've got a few more minutes yet. I got about 15 minutes. We've gone right at about an hour and 15.
I just want to respond to PAC coach and say, you know, this relationship between feelings and beliefs, it's huge. It's huge, huge, huge. I call it square circle logic. It's a long story behind square circle. It's a very cool story, but still, you know, in other words, it's something that you can believe in, that you believe exists, but cannot actually in reality exist. And so often those feeling belief associations are that. They're just a figment of the imagination. But it doesn't make it any less real. So the story of this is, I'll say very quickly,
Okay.
It's was an experiment on post-hypnotic suggestion. And so they hypnotized the people, and to them they say, look here, and they showed them this blank piece of paper, but said, here's a square circle. Remember it? Because at some point, you know, one of the testers are going to touch their nose, and then you remember this, and then you'll draw it. Okay, so they went out and they were kind of milling around. It was like a cocktail party type thing. And then the person touched their nose and suddenly all of a sudden, oh yeah, wow, you know what? I saw the square circle, and they started to draw it. And there, you know, this was something that was shared way back when in university psychology class. And that was kind of where they ended. They just wanted to show, you know, post-hypnotic suggestion worked. But they missed the point of the whole story. Because the guy happened to say kind of as an afterthought, and he said, well, you know, the subjects started to draw this or try to draw the square circle. And they got increasingly frustrated and kind of they got really stressed because they said, but I saw it, I did. I know I saw it, I did see it. And they really were bugging out on this. And this was, to me, this was the major part of that whole thing. To me, it just blew my mind. I said, here are people getting stressed and bothered about something that's purely imaginary.
Yep.
Holy shit, that's where square circle logic for me started. I said, that's square circle logic. They actually believe the square circle to be real. And it's so real, it actually stresses them. Now look around you at people and your friends, your own stuff. How many of them are getting stressed and bothered or hyped up or excited about something that doesn't actually exist? So just because it doesn't exist doesn't mean the effects of that belief aren't real.
That's right.
It's amazing. It's an amazing thing. It truly is something to really pay attention to because we have this built-in assumption that only real stuff is going to affect us. Nope.
Yep.
Nope. So, you know, so much of, you know, our issues are because of this feeling and belief loop that the one supports each other and it makes you believe it's real, but it's not. That's amazing. It's amazing. It's amazing stuff. Very exciting.
My favorite story, one of my
Exciting.
favorite ways to always remember that, my feelings, they are there, they're real, but it doesn't necessarily make them true or valid. And definitely when it goes to my beliefs. So it always helps me keep that balance, that what I may be believing is not what I'm feeling, and what I'm feeling is not necessarily what I believe. So I always ask myself, is this true? I always go back to that question. Is this true? For anything that I'm confused about, concerned about. And when I can't work it out, well, then I go sit on a Zoom with Sil.
Sleep on it.
So it's always so much fun too, that's a thing that people don't think. They think self-change and learning and growth, and working on stuff. It's like, I'm figuring out my problems. That's already there's this default association problem is stressful. No, what we do is fun, and we aren't looking to fix your problems. We're looking to find replacements.
Sure.
This is a very, very important issue because we started with self-conception, right?
Yep.
You can take your old self-conception, this idea of you as this broken person and, a trauma victim and all the stuff, replace it with something that you want to be, something that you're working on being, something that you practice every day. Replace it with a new power conception. That makes all the difference. For instance, to give the example of why fixing problems doesn't really solve stuff. You can teach your children not to steal. Does that make your children kind and courteous and considerate and thoughtful and discerning and aware? No, it doesn't. All it just makes them is not thieves. Right?
Yeah.
So when you fix a problem, you don't necessarily get the desired behavior. But teach your children to be kind and aware and thoughtful and considerate and understanding and discerning. Wow. Are they going to steal? Hell no. How in the hell is it possible? So when you focus on the replacement as a positive that you want to be, it takes care of the crap automatically, especially when you put awareness into the mix.
Exactly.
Yeah? You can, most of the time people are doing stupid things because of unawareness. Teach awareness and stupidity goes away. You don't need to fix your problems. What you really need to do is learn to be more aware. It's very simple. The problems will take care of themselves. Very simple. Very simple. I want to address Nancy. Sorry, Nancy. Nancy was talking about shame.
And
right? And then she said, this is a
question. Go ahead, Sil.
Okay. So shame is a big deal. Shame and guilt. Yeah. Again, look at shame and guilt in the context of, we said, how do they make sense? Right? We said earlier, whenever you've got a problem, you're stuck, just ask the question, how does this make sense?
Exactly.
It makes sense, Nancy, because it's leveraging you to be more aware.
Mm-hmm.
It makes sense. Everything makes sense in the context of awareness. That's it. That's the key. It's a translation key. It opens up all the magic doors. So when you see your shame and guilt as a spur, as a stimulus, as a prompt, you say, oh, wow. Okay, so what do I do with my shame and guilt? What was I just saying 2 seconds ago about replacement? That's the only way to get rid of shame and guilt, is to use it as a stimulus, as a spur, as a motivation to change. If you change, you truly, truly change, Nancy, and you become a different person. How can you feel guilty or ashamed about something that you did in the past? That was a different you with a different awareness, with a different behaviors, different mindset, different habits. Yeah? It's still a part of you, but you've learned, you've grown. In other words, by changing, you honor now that bad behavior. You are now making it right through change. Yeah? Does that make sense, Nancy?
I wonder if I don't know if there's a lag or not, or maybe she's probably not looking at the screen. It could just take a moment for her to type. Oh, she says she can't hear the broadcast. Are you guys still there?
Yeah, that's Anne that says that. Yeah, it may be that my connection dropped out. When I speak for a little bit longer, then it tends to drop it a little bit. So, but you can just repeat what I was saying. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So again, sorry to saying that Nancy's saying I analyze and intellectualize. You need application. Sorry, Nancy, analyzing and intellectualizing, it's a part of the process, yes. It's awareness, discernment, and understanding, yes, ADU, but they are all leading you to application. It's, yes, you have all of those, but without application, all of that analysis and intellectualizing is useless. They're all meaningless.
And I think
Back to practice.
just to add to that too, she said, how do I know what is true? I think the best way to gauge whether or not something is true is to look at the result of where you were and compare it to where you are now.
Exactly.
That's it.
Exactly.
Right there.
You
Exactly.
know? And we're not
Exactly.
going to apply everything
Yes.
all the time, but like, for example, right? Like, I'll just use this as an
Yeah.
example. Like, you know, we want to always, or at least I can speak for myself, we always want to be doing the next thing that's good for ourselves, right? Or like if we're ambitious, we always want to be doing the next thing that is going to give us a result that, you know, is positive. And when we're doing that by default anyway, there's always going to be a positive result. The problem with that, though, and it's a double-edged sword, is that sometimes we don't have I don't want to say have the awareness, but we have a hard time looking back to see how far ahead we are compared to where we were, you know? And
Exactly.
I just had this experience recently, you know, because I was really depressed, even though, life is the ultimate duality, but I'd been really depressed the last couple of days, even though I'm in a really good place. And I was like, why am I depressed? Like, what's going on? I'm doing all the right things. Well, you know, your body keeps things, right? So around 6 years ago, this time, my life was a shit show. You know, I'd lost my mom. I had lost my family. After that, I'd gone through a lot of trauma. I had moved in and out of a lot of different places. I was going through it. So, you know, I had to sit and process that, like, my body 6 years ago went through some extreme things. And only now, 6 years later, do I have moments. 6 years later, I have moments I wake up and I look around and go, oh, wow, Elise, I'm really proud of you for all the things you've built for yourself. I'm really proud of the home that you've created for yourself. You know, so you almost have to kind of like look back and go back to your old self and say, I see you. I know you're crying out. I can see you hurting. And that goes back to the inner child. Like, you know, I see you screaming. I see you, you know, yelling for me. And Nancy, correct me if I'm wrong, and feel free to reach out to me offline too.
Yeah.
You know, there's a part of you inside that's still screaming for your validation and your attention and your love. And the only way to really know how far you've come is to say, you know, look how far I've come. Look back to where you were a year, 2, 3 years ago. You've made improvements regardless of whether or not you believe it.
Sure.
But to know that it's true is to look at the results. Like for me, I was essentially homeless 6 years ago. I have to look at the results of my life and say, wow, I have this like beautiful apartment that I can sustain and I have a life that I can afford. Like I didn't have that. But I knew I would eventually. But that trauma part of us, that part that thinks we're not good enough, is always looking for the next best thing. So even though I've come so far, I'm still always looking for the next best thing because it is literally ingrained in my being. So to unfuck that.
Yes, it's a feeling belief loop.
Yeah, to unfuck that or unbind that, excuse my language, is just look for the proof.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So.
Exactly. So truth is a variable.
Yes, it is.
Sorry, people. I know a lot of you want to believe in absolute truths, but it's a variable. Because if you have believed something to be true, right, and totally, absolutely were 100% convinced it was true, and then later you found out it wasn't so. If this has happened to you only once, ever after that, if you're honest, you cannot ever believe a truth to be a fixed thing, because you might still be in an awareness bubble. So get over it and treat the truth as a variable. Once we start treating truth as a variable to answer the question, how do I know it's true? What's more important is to look at the effect. Whether it's true or not is irrelevant. It's the effect on you. What value, what usefulness are you getting out of it, and in what context? If I'm getting value and usefulness, okay, so I'm getting value and usefulness, but it's only for today. And tomorrow I'm going to get smacked upside the head. You know, I'm getting value and usefulness and spending my rent money on the party. Oh, well, tomorrow when I have to pay the rent, it's going to be a different story, right? So, and look at your value and usefulness in the immediate, in the intermediate, and in the long-term context. If you're getting usefulness and value, does it matter whether it's true or not? It's irrelevant. I watch TV, I see a nice movie, and somebody says something profound. I say, whoa, holy shit, that's really great. It doesn't matter that it's a fictional character. So whether it's true or not is irrelevant. I can get value out of things. Even if they're untrue, I can get value. I get great value out of, you know, the idea idea of alternate realities or afterlife. It stimulates me to be a better person or to learn or grow or whatever. I get value out of it. May turn out not to be true. Doesn't matter. We can get value whether things are true or not. And if you really want to get into even more detail, set your strategy so that you get value both ways.
That's an important point to make right there. And okay. So your screen is spinning. But he stopped at just a very perfect point. Is he froze on your end too, Elise? Okay. All right. But that is actually a perfect segue into what I wanted to read. Just a little bit, a last excerpt from the book, Unbound 100 Days of Intent. And then we're probably going to have to wrap it up. Oh, Syl just dropped off. All right. So this is from the epilogue. My entire life, I hated myself and everything about me. It was hard work liking myself, but to love myself, no, I believed I was not capable. And there she was. In the mirror one evening, she took a picture of herself and her reflection, smiling. There were tears before the picture was taken and tears after, but she liked who she was and how. I can't believe I wrote this word in my book, how effing strong and courageous. The beauty in her image was the courage that was powering through in that one moment. She was loving who she saw. It was hard to see herself in her own eyes, but at the same time empowering. The feeling after seeing the image inspired her to be more. Not more as in famous or a following, but more for herself. She wanted to be the best woman she could be for herself. That night was her turning point towards love, finding intimate, deep, profoundly moving love. She didn't have to search far because it was in her all along. There had been days of internal searching, releasing memories with tears and laughter while keeping what mattered, her soul intact, letting go. Sharing her story with good intent, sharing her life with others so they can heal and have hope in this life, sharing her love and watching her grow. I was loving her and what I was seeing. That was me. Then the other day, after a long talk with a deeply beautiful person, I fell in love. Not with the person I was speaking to, but with myself, with me, Cher. I'd never experienced love in this manner. Open, no expectations, no promises, nothing to lose. Just knowing her courage, the light inside her, and the goodness that she possesses made me love her. She let go and let love. She had begun the process of shedding the baggage that was too heavy, and she was starting new and was eager to learn. I love myself, and I love myself right now. Speaking off text, off script, I love myself more now than I did then, and not in a, dear God, narcissistic way. And that's something I still battle with, is being seen as vain. It's important to know that I love and appreciate myself. To know what loving yourself really means is to know peace when you sleep, the euphoric beats of music as you dance, the notes of love when you sing, to taste food for the first time without guilt, to dream and know you can make those dreams happen, to wish and know you can achieve those wishes, to just exist without internal emotional pain or guilt, and to believe that you have the authority to live and love fully with wonder and excitement, and want to share that with everybody, to love your past, and to appreciate the gifts that you were given. I want that for you as much as I want it for myself. Forgiveness is understanding. When we can grasp the concept of what story our abusers were living when they made the choice to hurt us, the process of forgiveness comes a little easier for them and for us. I'm going to leave that right there because there's some parts in there. I don't know. I'm getting a little bit of emotions right here going on. And I think a lot of that is just because I am so passionate. Not only, it's not about helping others, but it's about like I shared last night, my message, I have one simple message, that there is more on the other side. There's trauma, there's the pain, there's the hurt, the anger. We can just take one step over that threshold. I'm somebody who will stand with you and walk with you. I have a community of family, chosen family and friends like Elise, like Sil, like so many of you that I've been recently, meeting, the new followers, new connections that I'm making. The book is not just a story. The book is a testament to how people can change, how we can change. And what I originally thought was what started out with the purpose of figuring out how to feel and how to be able to speak and express my story turned into a tool, a sign that we can do this. You can do this. You can move beyond victim. You can move beyond being a survivor. You can move beyond all the labels and create wherever the hell you want to be. I love you. Lise, I love you. I love everybody. Thank you, everybody. And I know we've got another comment down here. Oh, okay, so was, okay. You guys, I love you. I love you all. And I know I'm going to see you on the other side. Miss Elise, we can chat and talk again really soon.
For sure.
Thank you with all my heart for everybody for welcoming me and for welcoming Sil. He calls himself an elucidator. I see him as my mentor. He's been a coach. He's been an amazing facilitator. He's a brilliant philosopher. Miss Elise, so much of the same. So,
You know I love you if I jumped on a live with no makeup on.
I know you do, girl. I know you do. Thank you, everybody.
Have a good day.
Okay, you guys, wonderful. Please like, follow, comment, share me, Elise, Sil. Oh, and hey, shameless plug, go buy this.
All right, I'm off. Bye, guys.
Bye.